Welcome everybody to my kitchen. This is a fun opportunity for me to share with you a cookie that we have made in our family for a long time. It's called Biscotti. It's an Italian cookie, and Biscotti means twice baked. So it has to be prepared as a cookie and baked, and then you take it out, cut it, and you put it back in the oven to toast it. That's why biscotti are usually pretty hard and crisp. And the reason for all of that is that tradition, I'm told, although I didn't know this when I was growing up, but it used to be that right before Lent, Mardi Gras, the people would have to use up all of their bakery goods because they didn't bake during Lent. So they had to use up all their flour and their sugar that they would use for cooking, and all of their sweets like the raisins and cranberries and dried fruit. And they would put all of those into the batch of biscotti and bake them. And then biscotti lasts 6 weeks if you put it in a nice can. And so they would have a cookie, of course, a biscotti, every day of Lent if they wanted, but they wouldn't be baking. So that's kind of the old tradition. But this is Christmas, and we're making it for Christmas. At our Christmas at Resurrection, the Women's Guild often had a bake sale, and I would often make a particular one that people seem to like. There are dozens and dozens and dozens of kinds of biscotti. This one is called cranberry almond biscotti. I came across the recipe in a magazine one day that was advertising baking powder. And they had this recipe for cranberry almond, and you needed to use cranberry almond cereal from Great Grains Post cereal. Never made anything with cereal for a biscotti. So people like it, I think, because it's a little sweeter than most biscotti and maybe even a little softer. But it's not hard to make. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm trying to be like those fabulous cooks on TV where they have everything ready. Well, I don't, but we're close, and Katie knows how to edit everything so it'll work for us. So the ingredients that you need, and we'll put the recipe online with this, you need very basic ingredients. You need flour. I keep mine in this container in the refrigerator. You need sugar. I keep this in my container in the refrigerator so it doesn't get old or ants don't get in. It's never happened. You need baking powder, a little salt. You need eggs. You need cranberries. You need a stick of butter. You need the cranberry cereal, of course, and a little vanilla. So here we go. I already put together the basic ingredients. So it works like this. You start with the sugar, and it's not a lot of sugar, it's just 3/4 cup of sugar. Many cookies have more sugar than that, but the cereal is sweet. You use sugar and a stick of butter. Should be room temperature, so that it mixes well, but not melted. So you cut it up, put it in your mixer, and let that mix so that it gets nice and creamy. While you're doing that, then you prepare the flour. You need 2 cups of flour, and you need a 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder and 1/4 spoon of salt. Then, when the butter and sugar are all creamed up, you add 2 eggs, and you can use it one at a time and mix it in. It's usually helpful not to dump everything in at the same time, at least I find that. And then also a teaspoon of vanilla. You mix all that up and let that slowly mix. Once it's gathered, you don't have to overmix it. Then you also need to put in another bowl 1.5 cups of the cereal. So I have a cup measure here, So pour that out so you can kind of see. I want to show you something about that. So that's a cup and a half. So I'm not real fussy. So the cereal, when it comes out, sometimes there are really big flakes. And the other thing that there's sometimes in there are these big chunks of, I don't know what it is, nuggets and cereal, whatever, sugar. So I always take some kind of a mallet and break it down so that those big chunks aren't in there, because otherwise they do create a little havoc when you're trying to put the cookie together. So after you have that chopped up, you need a half a cup of cranberries, dried cranberries. You can get those in the grocery store. You do have to cut those up, chop them up. So I use a cutting board to chop them up. And a long, long time ago, a fellow from the parish who has long since died gave me this knife that he had from Alaska, and it was for cutting fish. But it is a wonderful little cutting thing, so you can cut things like this quite simply. So once you have those together, I usually mix those raisins with the cereal, and now the batter is ready for that. You can take it out and mix it by hand, or you can mix it with the mixer on a slow mix. So you try not to eat every little thing that drops, like the cranberries are really yummy. This is just a cookie sheet, and I usually use parchment paper. You can also use, however you want it, flour, sugar, a spray. You can use a spray, but I usually use those. So your batter is pretty thick, and I'm going to make 2 logs out of that. So it's pretty pliable. It should be pretty pliable. And I'm just creating a log like this. A little Yuletime log, huh? Try to make them sort of the same size. You can press them out. And it should be, about 12 to 14 inches long. So I'm just kind of shaping it so that it's about even, about the same. And then I'm going to do the other one and put it also in here. By the way, I'm wearing an apron that my sister made me, which is the same style of apron that my grandmother always wore. And over in the corner right here that's all faded was a picture of my grandmother. So I like to wear that and think of her and what a wonderful person she was, and a good cook and a baker. And she was came right from Italy when she was 16 years old. She was the oldest in her family, and she and her mother and her 4 brothers and sisters came across the ocean and eventually ended up in Steubenville, Ohio. And that's where my story begins. All right, so this is good. So we see that's how it looks here. And I'm going to put it in the oven at 325, so it's kind of not a real hot oven. And we're going to keep it in there for 30 minutes. Okay, so we put our logs in the oven. They've been in there for 30 minutes. And here they are coming out. You can see they're not cooked all the way. They're just lightly browned. In fact, I could have taken them out maybe 2 minutes earlier. So we're going to take those out of the oven and just close the oven up because we're going to still need it. And then we're going to take the logs off of the cutting board, off of the pan, and put them on the cutting board. And so you just have to loosen them up a little bit and just let them slide right off. You can turn it around and just do that. We're going to let them cool for about 10 minutes. Well, here we are back with our logs that have been cooling for the last 10 minutes. And I have them on the cutting board, and I have my nice serrated knife to cut the biscotti to this shape. Just a little sideline. In Italy, they call all their cookies biscotti, and so does all of Europe. That's kind of like saying cookie. But this is a particular kind of cookie. So anyway, I'm going to cut these on an angle. So I just slice through and slice through. So there you go. And then we put those on the back right on the cooking sheet that you used, and only set them up and let them stand up so there's a little space between them. So then you would put those in the oven for about 10 minutes, 12 minutes at the most. You don't want to overbake them. And then once they're finished, you take them out, set them on a rack to cool off, and then eat. Dip them in your coffee, your hot chocolate, your wine. They are delicious. And have a nice can that you can store them in because they stay fresh for a long time. You can freeze them too. Another fun thing to do after they've baked and they've second baked and cooled, you can dip them in some chocolate. So I hope this is fun for you, that you have a Merry Christmas, and try it. And if you don't know what to do, give me a call and we'll have another demonstration.